So we have Arvind.R.Vohra from Gionee phones who's going to come here and talk about mobile phones being the primary screen. Please give a big round of applause.
Okay, what I was saying was, I think as an organization, we are already around your neck. And as the host said, you've seen the sexiest phone in the world, so on and so forth. Well, you have Gionee around your neck and you have somebody talking about the sexiest phone in the world. That's one part of the story. But what's important is, and what I'm going to really talk about is how the mobile phone is actually progressing towards becoming a first screen. And somehow or the other, I get a feeling that I'm sitting amongst, or I'm standing in front of potential billionaires, because that's what your application world is all about. And if I'll end up contributing something, just remember my accounts, not the Swiss bank, but my accounts. So why do we need a screen is a good question. You do content creation, you do content consumption, you do a lot of transaction, you do a lot of information sharing, and you do a lot of data sharing. Now, whether it's Sony television, I mean, you all have had no choice but to actually go on and build an app. I mean, if it was Star, they had no choice but to actually go and increase consumers by building an application. So fundamentally, what's really happening is your mobile phone is becoming your first screen. And it's been seen over time. You had the television, then you had a slimmer television, you had the PC, then somebody said tablets will kill PCs, and then somebody said tablets will have some effect on mobile phones. Fact of the matter remains, mobile phones have stayed the way they have and have actually started taking share from everybody else in the ecosystem. In today's world, let's understand what are these screens: television, desktop laptops, tablets, mobile phones. I mean, these are essentially the screens that we use. Let's understand how are screens in your daily life. Morning 6 to 9, the moment you wake up, you actually have your mobile phone in your hand. Some guys would have a cigarette alongside when they go on the throne, right? And then you watch a little bit of TV, and if you stay in the ITC, they give you a TV inside your washroom also, right? How many of you all watch the TV inside the washroom? Guys, be honest. It's early in the morning, and we're sitting in a very pious city known as Chennai. So 9 to 6 is where you start using your mobile phones, you start using your tablets, you start using your laptops. 6 to 8, back home, either you're driving or you're being driven, or you're in the metro in a city like Delhi or in a city like Bombay, you're jostled amongst people, but you're still on the mobile phone. And 8 to 12, because now nobody in India sleeps early. So you'll end up again using the television and the mobile phone. So what I'm really trying to say is the only constant screen is the mobile phone, and that's the reason I'm in that business, right? See guys, I'm going to not take too much of your time, and I'm going to not take too much on presenting, teaching you what it is, because you'll learn it, guys. I'm the guy who's going to learn from you all. So just did some idea on media consumption. About 6 hours of media is what we consume. This is the data from InMobi. And almost about 28% of the consumption of media, you do it on your mobile phone. Moving ahead, what all does one do with a mobile phone? You make calls, you have social media, you have instant messaging, you have gaming, you have news and magazines, sports, fitness, and the list is endless. You can just go on and on and on and on and on. What do you do with a mobile phone? But all this is happening more or less in an application-enabled world, right? So I heard people talk about what you would do for B2C, and there was a gentleman who asked about what you would do for B2B. I think it's not imperative what you're going to do B2B or what you're going to do B2C. It's going to be imperative is how you're really going to make the transaction seamless, right? Today, if you look at the cab example, it is very difficult. Call up the cab guy, he comes, picks you up, and so on and so forth. Today, you just punch in, and you're there. And another thing that's happened is there's reliability of the system, because there's much more record of transactions that you had in a physical world. Actually, you've started having more record of transactions in a virtual world. So let's look at a few numbers. Facebook, I think everybody would have heard about. These are numbers of 2014, so don't accuse me because they would have moved much beyond this. About 72 million, that's about less than 70% would access on smart devices. Let's look at Twitter. Almost 79% of the people use Twitter from a mobile phone, contrary to a laptop or a tablet. This was very interesting. Hotstar, more than 21 million downloads in 3 months. And you know, you had the IPL, which was on Sony, am I right? And you had Hotstar, which was on Star. But you'll be surprised that with all this happening, you actually landed up having almost a 30% jump in the IPL viewership. And in my opinion, if I was to, you know, if Mr. Sodhi, if you were to thank anybody at Sony, you had to thank Star. Because Star actually built the continuity on the mobile phone and you took it to the television. So, you know, I don't know what pundits will say at a later date, but if you ask me personally speaking, Star doesn't know what they've done for themselves, right? So, let's look at online shopping. We've got about statistics about 40 million online shoppers, and 60% are on mobile devices. And this is the data that comes out of Moge and stuff like that. Even local transport has changed. You have Ola, you have Uber, you have taxi for sure. I was given to understand there's some regulation coming in now for all these guys as per the newspaper this morning. But what's important is even the country has to think about legislation related to these guys. The country doesn't think about legislation when it is frugal or it is small. The country only thinks about legislation when the thing becomes big. So that means the country also looks at some milking opportunity through all these guys. Currency has changed. I mean, you have PTM, you have MobiQuick, you have FreeCharge, you have a host of them planning while we're talking about it. So what I'm saying is an ecosystem is being created. You have the applications, you have the network operator, and you have the payment gateways. And the central piece happens to be the mobile phone. Your application interchange is on the mobile, your network exchange is on the mobile, your payment gateways are on the mobile. So what's really happened is, I think some of you who might have been exposed to the telecom sector way back in the early 2000s, the revenue share was almost 90-10, 90% in favor of the operator and 10% in favor of guys like us. But I believe today we are able to crack deals which are 70-30. 70% comes to the application owners and 30% stays with the network operators. Now the network operators might argue that the volume has become very big, but the actual answer is you all guys have become compelling. So continue to do what you're doing, because end of the day, this is how I look at you all guys. In my opinion, all of you all have moved from pure applications or pure mobile selling and stuff like that to actually, would anybody like to take a guess at what this is? What does MVNO mean? Yeah, so I personally believe the anchor of this ecosystem is the mobile phone. Compelling apps will actually lead to consumer base and valuation of application makers. So end of the day, what you're really looking at is you are a stream which will get recurring revenue over a period of time. So catch the consumer now and you milk him till the grave. So end of the day, any business model which would have recurring revenue is there up for valuation. So I was not wrong when I came into this room and I said I can actually smell billionaires. And I think mobile phone will be the primary screen in the future, which was the starting point of my topic. And thank you so much. I told you I won't be too much around your neck. I'm open to questions. So anybody would like to ask me anything, more than willing to answer.
To start with, thanks for that. Today, mobile phones are in the, as you said, you're putting that at the center of the ecosystem, and the communication that happens around the phones are about how big the screen is, what is the hardware capacity, etc. Do you see in the future if applications will decide the flow of design of phones itself?
Okay, I wanted to cover that, but seeing so many billionaires, I got a little nervous and stuff like that. So, in my opinion, your internet revolution will come on the smartphone. That's extremely, extremely clear. You're not going to have the tablet, you're not going to have the PC actually give you mobile internet revolution. Now, as a company, I'll like to relate it a little to what we did. As a company, we were compelled, get low price devices. You're a Chinese company, you should offer something almost free, give the consumer something because they buy you. But we resisted from that. and from day one, we stuck to a particular specification. Because if you want to really move your mobile phones in the market where the consumer enjoys it, it's all about consumer experience. And consumer experience will come out of a specification. Unless you become an Apple where you drive what you want to, but end of the day, it's consumer experience which is most important. So it's extremely critical that as a hardware manufacturer, you account for that. But having said that, what is more important is, it's not about taking a bit of memory, taking a bit of LCD, taking a bit of processors, piecing it out together. That's not what is going to give you consumer experience. So what's essential for mobile phone device makers is that you get your R&D to optimize what you have in your hardware. And that's where you give seamless experience to the consumer. So what I'm really trying to say is, any consumer who looks to which mobile phone he wants to buy, especially when he's looking at application, he will actually have to go deep down to understand what is the consumer experience and how deep the organization is in terms of R&D in delivering that consumer experience.
Thank you. Questions? Floor is open. Yeah.
The support for regional languages are still still not there. Especially, for example, if my driver has to type out in Tamil, there are hardly phones that support them. There are a few, one or two, but I don't think even Gionee, your phone supports regional languages. Hindi is supported, I am aware of it, and it's again becomes a challenge when we want to develop apps for regions.
Firstly, let me tell you that my devices support 9 languages, and Tamil is one of them. Language support earlier was very difficult, but again, it is some smart application guys like y'all who made it seamless. Today, if a company wants to do about 9 languages by which you can actually cover almost the entire country, it would take you 90 days, start to finish. So it's the intent of the company. Availability is there. On all my devices, you would largely have regional languages. Yep.
Yeah. How do you rapidly differentiate yourself from the competition? Because there are so many players out there.
I thought that was an application seminar.
Okay.
But anyway, with the sexiest phone in the world, with the slimmest device in the world, and we're 10 times faster than your dad's phone. Simple.
Yeah, that is a position today. How do you sustain it? What techniques do you use? And
I was in Chennai yesterday and speaking to somebody. For any manufacturer, any device maker, or anybody who looks at business from a very long-term perspective, there are a couple of things that you need to do. One is you need to have astute control on your brand. Second is you need to be a manufacturer. Third is you need to have good supply chain, and you need to have your R&D and software in place. 4 is you need to have an online bit in place. And 5th is you need to have a recurring revenue. This is how valuations are built. But in terms of how do you differentiate and stay ahead, there's only one way that you do it, and that's R&D. So back home in China, I still call that home because we're setting up an R&D unit here. We have about 1,200 engineers and about 400 people working purely on the software ecosystem based out of Beijing and Shenzhen respectively. So it's basically R&D which is going to drive it, nothing else.
Awesome.